Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
Alrighty, good morning everyone, or afternoon. Welcome to another Thursday webinar. My name is Jonathan Maddock. I'm a trainer here at Redtail Technology. This week we are going over part 3 of the business development series that we have. This week we are going to be talking about using the CRM to track new business. If you followed along with us the last couple of weeks, you'll know that we had discussed talking about kind of establishing our sales cycle, what that looks like within the CRM. Last week, we discussed how to use the workflows and automations to help with our, tracking or kind of figuring out when we should be reaching out. Now, this week, we're going to touch a little bit on what we did last week. However, we're going to be going in a little bit more depth. Now, for anybody who has not seen video 1 and 2, I recommend just pausing right now, go back to the help desk, watch those 2 videos, and then go ahead and watch this one at a later date, because we are going to be building based off of what we've discussed. So to go ahead and get started, I want to jump just right into it. We are going to be talking about going more in depth in opportunities and workflows today. So I know we had touched on this last week just because I wanted to show you how it functions with the workflows and automations and then attaching it to an opportunity. And now this week, we're going to dive a little bit further into those opportunities and taking a look at what reports we can use to then go ahead and see where our time is being spent and take a look at what needs to get done. So to go ahead and get started, we're going to head over to the left-hand side of the database and we're going to click into opportunities. Now, if you remember what I said last week, one of the big things that you're going to be wanting to do when it comes to opportunities is you are going to want to make sure that you have kind of a value attached to the work that you're about to put in, right? So if you talk with a client and they say, hey, I want to do a 401k rollover, you know that there's a value attached to it, right? Maybe they have $250,000 in their 401k, so you can kind of gauge some sort of AUM that you have to gain. Now, to go ahead and get started, we clicked into the left-hand side. We went into our dashboard for opportunities. A couple things you're going to notice up here at the top. You're going to see a number of open ops. This is going to be database wide. So this is really you're going to see everything here. Unless you've been permissioned out of it. So you do have the ability to permission a opportunity away from others to view. You're going to see a potential number. Just remember this field right here, because I am going to talk about it in just a second. Then you have a closed won and a closed lost. Over here at Redtail, you can tell we always win. Now, we will then go ahead and take a look at, you're currently viewing, this is going to be our potential here. This total amount viewing will adjust based off of, kind of what we're taking a look at. So if we look at all, you're going to see that this changes, right? And this value right here is actually the potential number, and it's also going to be the amount field on the opportunity. So this is a way we can kind of really quickly gauge, what our pipeline looks like. That's really what an opportunity is. It's a way for us to gauge kind of what irons do we have on the fire, right? Is my, prospecting, is my new business development, working? Am I gaining something from this? Or am I constantly, kind of scrounging and looking for that new business? Now, I understand that financial services is generally a referral-based business. You aren't doing a whole lot of, media, mass marketing and things like that. Some of you do. Some of you are finding some good benefits to it. Same with social media marketing and things like that. But I know a lot of it's going to be coming from that referrals. So let's go ahead and click into a opportunity, and we are just actually let's just build one right from the start. So in order to create a new opportunity, we're going to go over to the left-hand side. We're going to hit new opportunity. Again, if you followed along over the last 2 weeks, this is going to be right when you're going to start that opportunity right as you've maybe finished that first workflow. And you get that kind of that go ahead of, hey, let's have that discovery meeting or that initial conversation with the client. So we'll go ahead and hit new opportunity over there on the right, and we'll give it a name. Because you can sort your opportunities alphabetically, I really do recommend that you put some sort of maybe the type of business as the first part of the name. So you maybe will put investment, or maybe you're going to go ahead and put, life insurance, whatever it may be. You can go ahead and do that here, and then put a dash and then the client and the prospect or the client's name, depending on if it's new business or existing. I like to do this just so that way, I can go ahead and sort based off of the different business types. So I can say something like, oh, these are all my investment opportunities, right? Or these are all my life insurance opportunities. If you have, a number of different people in your office wearing different hats, maybe you have a planner versus you have an investment advisor, or maybe you have somebody who just does estate planning. Right? You can go ahead and everybody can use the opportunities, and they can go ahead and very quickly decipher whose is whose. Again, we'll go into new opportunity here, and we are going to do an investment. So not going to do it with caps lock though. Investment. And then we'll give it, I think we'll use, what do we use? Steve Weston last week. So now this is where you can give it some sort of description, right? This is where you're going to be taking a look at your notes that you had for that discussion or that discovery meeting and putting it into the description here. So this is where a lot of the numbers are going to come into play. You're going to put things like, they have a 401k, or hey, they have accounts being held over here, and you're going to really start to put in the numbers here. Now this is a free text form, so you can go ahead and put in whatever you'd like. So we'll just say, that's not that. We'll just say 500K or something. And then again, you just give more description. Now, you also have the ability to select new business versus an existing business. I know that you guys are gaining your business one of two ways, whether it's you already have a client who is going to take on more products that you provide, or this is a brand new client. Maybe this is a referral or whatnot. You can go ahead and decipher which is which. I think this is important here because then you can very quickly tell, hey, do I even need to adjust my business strategy and start going out and looking for it, or is a lot of it coming in from existing? So for this one, we're going to go ahead and just say new business. And this is where we can also permission it out. So we can say, hey, I only want this user, only want this team to be able to see this opportunity, right? If you're sharing a book of business, this might be valuable to you, or maybe you're in an office where you're using the same database and everybody has access to view things. Maybe you don't want to share that with everybody. So you can go ahead and use those permissions and go ahead and set that up. I'm going to select nothing for now, and I'm going to create that opportunity. Now, once we go ahead and create that opportunity, it's going to really just have just the name, right? We have that name and that new business. Now let's go ahead and break down a couple of the options that we have here. So next steps is really for you to go ahead and track what you need to do to move forward within this process, right? So if this is a new case, what do I need to get done so that way I can push this to the next level? So this might be, reach back out to Steve after his vacation, right? And then maybe put a date of, 9/15 or something like that. You can then go ahead and set a close date. I think this can be used two ways. It can be used as far as like when you would like to see this closed. So in your initial start of the opportunity, you're going to use the close date for something like, hey, I want my sales cycle to take really, it should be no more than 2 months, right? Or maybe it should be only 30 days, whatever it may be. You kind of can give gauge and say, hey, this should be closing at this time. Or if it's maybe a longer, process where you're like, hey, somebody's going to be retiring in, December of 2020, and I want to get that information in now so we can do that rollover once everything is set, then, your close date is going to be further out. So you're going to push that out to that's when you think you're going to be closing this. Then what I would also do, the second way this can be used is that once you've actually closed this deal, or once you've actually been paid, you've got the commission check, everybody's happy, then you can also go back into the opportunity and set the actual day that it closed, right? So we can say, oh, I wanted it to close on the 30th, but however, it was closed a lot faster than I thought, and it actually ended up closing on the 23rd. Then this way you can go ahead and take a look and say, hey, this is everything that is closed in, September, or this is everything that is closed in August. And then you can go ahead and start to gauge, how long things are taking. Then you're going to get into stages. Stages is really one of the most customizable parts of an opportunity. You're going to see that you can either select nothing. You have closed lost and closed won. Those are going to be system defaults. And these are going to reflect what is on the opportunities dashboard. Okay, so this potential number that I was talking about earlier, whatever the amount field in the opportunity will then, if you select closed won, it will reflect on this value, or if you select closed lost, it will reflect on this value. So again, you're taking a look and you're saying, hey, closed, I'm going to go ahead and set it to closed lost or closed won, and then whatever value is in the amount field. So let's say it's, I'm gonna say he's a heavy hitter, right? Let's say we got 5 million to gain. We can go ahead and put this amount closed won, and then once I save, this value will actually increase by 5 million. So again, that's what you're going to be doing to increase that pipeline, right? Now, you may not know exactly what it is, so you might be ballparking here in the amount, especially during that discovery phase. But if there's any way for you to, finally get those final numbers when they open the account and they actually put over, $4,750,628.16, right? That is a value that you could then put there. And again, it would reflect over in your closed won. This is, again, a customizable list. So, if you're taking a look at this here, you might notice we have an EB, we have an NB, and we have another NB, but also has a life here. Now, these are great for you to go ahead and gauge, where you're at within that sales cycle. This would be great for you to take a look like, hey, once I've completed, workflow number 1, I'm at EB, existing business number 1. Once I've completed workflow number 2 for this cycle, I'm at, the proposal stage, right? So, the workflows that you're linking over here from our last video could very well directly reflect, how you are gauging where they're at within that stage. So the EB here means existing business. The way that we kind of created this was we were thinking, hey, EB is going to be existing business. It's going to be a much shorter sales cycle, right? There's not as much trust building. There's not as much data gathering because they're already existing clients, right? Really what we're doing is we're kind of having a conversation saying, hey, you'd like this, or hey, we want to increase that. Great. We're going to give them a proposal. They're going to sign, and then we're going to move on. Whereas that new business is going to be a little bit longer, right? We have to gain their trust. We have to have the conversation. We have to make sure that's a fit for not only us, but also them. And then we want to go ahead and start gathering all that documentation and putting it together. That is going to add quite a bit of other steps to this sales cycle. So that's why we have NB, and it's got 6 steps because it's new business and it's going to be a longer cycle. This is a personal favorite of mine. I've also gone ahead and done one for my life insurance because life insurance is going to be a much different sales cycle than an investment, right? life insurance is going to cost, I'm going to be working with a medical exam if it requires it. I'm going to be sending an application, all those types of things. It's got to go through underwriting. That can take a much longer time than opening an account. So again, we use these to go ahead and gauge, maybe what process we're in. Now, I think this stages is really one of the most important parts of an opportunity outside of the amount. So really make sure that if you are going to be, grasping opportunities and you're going to really try to implement them, that you're really using the stages with purpose. You're using them to really guide you through where you're at within that process. Now, some couple other, options here for fields. We have assign to, so we can go ahead and assign this to a specific advisor or user in the database. This way I can go ahead and segment out and say, hey, these are my opportunities and these are yours. Same thing with our source. Where are we sourcing this opportunity? Is it a referral? Did it come from, a radio lead? Was it a marketing lead? Something like that. So then again, as you're closing business, you can go ahead and say, hey, listen, we've gained, $500 million in ad. No, that's a really high number, and maybe it's a good number, but maybe we've gained 20 million over the last month or two just from referrals, or maybe it's our radio program. If you're using source, you can then go ahead and sort based off of the source, and then you take a look at the amount and say, hey, listen, we're gaining this much money in this period of time from this source. And again, those are the kind of the metrics that you're taking a look at from more of a managerial and kind of an operations perspective. Then you have the percent complete. Now, this is going to be something that you can use any which way you'd like. I think percent complete is probably going to be pretty close to the stages, right? If they're at their proposal stage, we know that they're more likely to either fall over onto that, maybe that 75% probability. This is something that you're going to have to gauge and you're going to have to use internally. I know in my past sales experience, I always used to take a look, and you knew somebody who was, yep, I'm ready to sign. Let's get this going. And it was very quickly to say, I could jump this up to 85%, even though maybe we're at a stage, maybe is still in discovery. This person is hot. They want to keep going. They keep saying yes. There's no red flags that are going to be coming up. So let's bump that up to an 85%. Now, we're going to talk about why that's going to be important when we get into the kind of the dashboard of things. But it's going to be a great way for you to kind of take a look at the team and say, hey, what do we think is actually going to close versus, hey, I think I might need a little bit more help, or I think we might need a little bit more time to close this opportunity. Now, as you go to these next two, we have projected revenue and actual revenue. Now, I get this asked a lot of, hey, Jonathan, why is it that revenue is not what's reflected on the activities dashboard, right? Well, the answer to that is going to be, you all do different lines of business, right? There's some of you who are a full service shop doing financial planning, doing tax, doing estate planning, doing maybe some P&C and investment and fee-based versus, commission-based, whatever it may be, right? If I were to make sure that projected revenue was, came up on the dashboard, I would be pigeonholing you into making sure that you're only discussing revenue, okay? We didn't want to do that. So what we did is we selected this amount field and we allowed you to choose what you want to track, right? Some of you are sitting here going, hey, I only do investment. I only want to track AUM. AUM is all that I care about. Whereas others out there might be doing a full service, and you're saying, hey, for a financial plan, I make $12,000 or $1,200, and I don't want to put that amount here for $1,200. Or maybe I do put it for $1,200. Whatever it may be, you can go ahead and we give you that flexibility to choose what that amount is. Maybe you have the amount field is the exact same as the revenue. Again, it's up to you. We didn't want to make sure that there was only one value to track. We wanted to open it up so that all values could be tracked. I think that this is something that you could go ahead and take a look at and say, hey, if I'm getting, maybe 1% of 5 million, right? I can then go ahead and put in that 50,000, maybe projected revenue or something like that. Is that right? My math right? Yeah, I think that's right. So then you would go ahead and put that here. Now, if it turns out that they go with a lower percentage and it ends up being maybe just under 1%, and you thought it was going to be, at 50,000, something like that, and it ends up being a little bit lower and ends up being 46,000, you can then put the actual revenue, right? Then I'm taking a look and I'm saying, hey, what did I actually gain from this opportunity versus what I thought I was going to go ahead and gain. Again, I want you to everybody to understand that this is up to you on how you use these. Whatever you do, be consistent. It's the number one thing I can say is be consistent with the way that you're tracking and make sure that you're doing it with purpose, right? I don't want to just throw out just a bunch of, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do it this way. Be consistent and make sure that it makes sense for everybody in the office. So once we have all of that, you can then go ahead and add more to the description along the way. You also have the ability to link to a contact, which you absolutely should. I want to know who this opportunity actually is for. And I don't know if I have a Steve in here. I do. So we'll go ahead and put Steve Weston in there. Again, if you look back to our last video, we talked about linking a workflow. So you can take a look at those existing workflows and say, hey, this is something that is open. And there we go. We have prospect workflow number 2 open, link workflow. And I think it's already linked to 1, so that's why that's kind of triggering there. I also want to note this, and this is actually something that I just learned just a little bit ago, and I think that you all, since you guys know your business really well, and you could start to kind of develop maybe a process around this, you can actually link more than one workflow to a opportunity. So what I've kind of started to think about, there you go, just linked it, is I'm thinking, if you start to begin, and this is really what you should be doing already, but you should be using the opportunity as kind of the central hub of that case or that deal, right? And then you're going to be using the workflows to kind of guide you through the timeline. So what I like about this here is that you can have a new client, or new client coming on board, and they tell you, hey, I want to do it all, right? I want to do a financial plan. I want to do, I want to do some insurance, and I want to do some investments. So I'm going to open up 2 accounts and blah, 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 right? You very well could have a workflow for all 4 of those different items. So what you could do is you can keep kind of where you gained this business from in the opportunity, and then you can add all of those different workflows for each one of those business lines right here within the linked workflows, so that way you're really only going to one location. You're going to the opportunity and seeing how it's progressing. And then you can go ahead and click into each one of these workflows and take a look and say, oh, this is moving forward. Oh, why is the financial plan not moving forward? Or, hey, why isn't what's holding up on the insurance? Oh, looks like underwriting's taking a little bit longer, right? You can see those workflows right from the dashboard of the opportunity. So again, this is not going to replace the notes that you're taking, but it surely is going to give you a nice little hub of, hey, this is the new business that I have, and here's all of the different avenues and the different processes that I'm also going through while I'm working to close this big number right here. Again, we had mentioned permissions, so you can go ahead and add permissions. You can also go and take a look at a timeline. So you will have an opportunity timeline. So this is something that you share. You can then go ahead and maybe see who added what along the way. And so this will be kind of in real time. And now I want to go ahead and I'm going to go back to, I'm going to save this opportunity actually. And I want to go back into the dashboard because I want to show a couple things. Again, we had talked about that those values up here at the top. A couple viewing options that you have, or you can take a look at everything that is currently open. So that is going to mean that it has a stage that is not closed, lost, and closed won. You can select closed, and that means that it does have a stage of closed, lost, or closed won. Or if you want to see everything together, you can hit all, and that's going to show everything combined. Now, the other option, and that's relatively, I'd say it's relatively newer, is the new filter options that you have here. So you can now take a look at the stages, which I think is something that's always been available to you, but you can also now take a look at a date range. So I can then go ahead and say, hey, I want to see all the opportunities for Q1 of 2019. So if that's the case, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and jump way back to 2019, and I'm going to get into the first 3 months of the year. And I'll select the 31st. So now I'm looking at the very beginning of January to the very end of March. That would be the first quarter. Now I can apply these filters, and you're seeing that these are just the opportunities that were in and created within that first quarter of the year. And we can see how we've progressed, right? It looks like we've won. Wow, we are winners. Am I right? So you can then go ahead and take a look and say, hey, that's what we've done over that time period. So the other options that you have in the filter is assigned by a specific user. So, hey, I only want to see my opportunities. You can select your username. You can select by a specific source. This is what I was talking about earlier is, hey, is my radio lead effective, right? So let's see if we gained any opportunities over the last year just from, our radio leads. And then the same thing is with our stages. So then you can go ahead and take a look and say, hey, for our business meeting on our sales meetings on Mondays, I want to go ahead and see, hey, I just want to see the first 3 stages. Let's see what's in its infant stages and how we're going to go ahead and attack these next 3, So again, those are going to be the filtering options for you. I also learned something else. This has been a great week because I've learned quite a bit this week. I've been saying for a long time, hey, only create an opportunity when you have a value attached to it. And I still wholeheartedly stand by that. However, I do know that there are going to be some times when, it's probably not likely that, I want to put something on my radar. I just don't have a value attached to it yet. So what I would suggest to you then, the option that, or the scenario that this kind of stemmed from is, hey, you have an active client, you had a client review, and during that client review, they mentioned to you that their mom is going to be retiring in the next couple years, and they know that they're not working with anybody, and they would love for you to have a conversation with them, right? So if they're going to be retiring next year, you don't really have any information on the mom other than maybe the first name, last name, and maybe they're a beneficiary or something like that. So you're going to go ahead and maybe have a phone number. Well, if that's the case, what you can do is you still should create an opportunity so that way you're tracking, what is potentially to gain from that calling of the mother. And let's see, where is it? I had it here somewhere. Let's use my alphabetical. Nope, it is not here. So let's go ahead and go to our filter options. 2019 went super far back tonight. Maybe I didn't save it. That's fine. So what we would do is you can then go ahead and create an opportunity. And I'm going to actually put this investment Amy Matthews, because this is actually Corey Matthews' mother. And we'll go ahead and just create the opportunity. And the reason why I want to point this out is because I do think the value of creating something and not giving it a stage is actually pretty important. Because what you can then do is you can leave this stage blank, and you can tell yourself, hey, when I go to filter, I only want to see items that have a stage already attached to it, right? So if I'm going to go ahead and say, new business gathering contact information, and I have a value, I can put that here, right? That's great. But you could also select no stage, put no amount, and then when you're filtering the options in the opportunity dashboard, you're actually searching based off of what would be the stage. You would select none. So that this way there is no stage that I'm actually in that point where I'm going to then go ahead and see if there it is. So then I would go ahead and take a look at it and say, hey, this is the opportunity that just says something like, Amy is going to be retiring in a couple years, discuss it with Corey at the next review and just kind of check in on, see how everything is going, and then possibly gain her, get her contact information. Again, you know your business better than I am, but I just think that using that stage of not selecting it for items that I want to put on my radar, but I don't have a value to yet could very well help you engaging everything. Okay, so that is going to be the opportunity section, and that's really where you should be tracking a lot of your new business. A couple things that I also want to go ahead and talk about is some reports. So in the opportunities dashboard, we were able to kind of filter based off of it, and you have the ability to export into a Excel document, or you can push it to a PDF, and it's going to have a nice little list of everything that is there. And so if we want to take a look at that, I'll go ahead and give just a quick little example of that. So we filter, we got a bunch of these here, and we can go to hit PDF, and it's going to show us a nice little view of, kind of what we see here, the information that we see here. Let's just kind of drag this up. So now I have an opportunities report. You see that I'm clearly missing some information along the way. But we can then go ahead and take this and maybe bring it into our sales meetings or whatever and track kind of what we have going on. And we can do the same thing with Excel. It puts it into an Excel document, similar fields. I'm not going to go into that. Now, to take that just a little step further, or just kind of take a look at a different view, you also have the ability to go to reports on the left-hand side and go into opportunity reports. It's going to be similar information, except for you're kind of basing it. It's going to give more fields, or it's going to give a different list view. So you can go ahead and filter, and you're not necessarily looking from a date range, but you're looking for, maybe these people, a specific user. So we want to see everything that's assigned to Tabitha, and that's in a specific stage. You can use the report to run that as well. The reason why I bring this up is because once you find a select group that has maybe, gather some contacts here that have opportunities, you do have the ability to send them to search. So you can then push all of the people who have an open opportunity with investment attached to it that are in, the stage 1, 2, or 3. You can then send that to search, and now you have a good list of them. So I want to make sure that you're aware that if you run the report, you do have the ability to send that to the search function. And then the last point that I want to make today, and this goes back to last week's kind of topic, which was the workflows, is that you can also run a workflow report that is based off of your, different stages within the workflow process. So if you're still using that prospecting workflow, you can then go ahead and see all the prospecting workflows, and you can see kind of what steps you're in, or what needs to get done, what's the next target date. The reason why I bring this up is because, maybe you're somebody who likes to do a lot of new business calling on a specific day. I used to call it power hour, right? Where I would just sit down and I would just dial and smile and just reach out to everybody who I thought needed to be called. Hey, if that's the case, you're going to be going based off of the interaction that we had in last week's workflow, and then you just be calling during that time. Now, this is a great way for you to go ahead and pull all of those, people that need to be called right from this report. So again, you do have the ability to run a report based off of your opportunities, as well as taking a look at those specific workflow steps that you may want to track. So that is really going to be what I wanted to cover today. So again, just to kind of summarize, we're going to be using opportunities to go ahead and track all of the information about a specific deal. We're going to be using our workflows and automations to guide us through when we should be reaching out, what needs to be, who needs to be, touched throughout that sales cycle. And then we're going to be using our statuses, categories, and things like that to kind of gauge those individual contacts, as to where they're at within that cycle as well, right? We can take a look at all of the contacts who have a specific status of prospect or lead or whatever it may be.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.